I hadn't heard a dozen words.
I don't know what to expect from a man. You know, there's a limit to how entertaining they can be.
Well, they ought to be able to talk a little. Simple sentences.
If you love listening to this show, please consider giving a rating and a review on Amazon Alexa or wherever you listen. We want to continue bringing you this amazing content, and part of our ability to do that means that we need a big audience. Now, it may not seem like much, but rating and reviewing the show will help more people find us, just like how you found this show. Simply on any podcast platform, search for a show, scroll down to the bottom, and push 5 stars. It's that easy. Thanks for supporting the show. Today, I'm joined by Pat Kinsell, who is the founder and CEO of Notarize, a startup that really created the online notary category space. He is also the winner of Housing Wire's Rising Star Award and the MBA's Technology All-Star Award. And he's also partner with the VC firm Polaris Partners. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate the chance to connect.
Prior to this startup, created a startup called Spindle that was acquired by Twitter. Can you share experience?
Yeah, that was a search business. So prior to Spindle, I was actually at Microsoft working on social search, and I left and continued that, journey in my life by starting Spindle, and ultimately did sell that company to Twitter. I think in terms of a learning, for me, what I concluded is that it's not just enough to build a great technology. We really started out to solve a technical problem, which was how do you structure social content in order to produce good results. But then, of course, after building a great technology, we had to figure out how to build a product and then how to figure out how to build a business. And so really, for me, I decided if I was ever going to start another company, I wanted to start by solving a real business problem and to work backward into technology.
Great point, because I think many startups, especially those that are started by more of the technical engineers, tend to focus on features rather than a business model. So let's get into the genesis of Notarize and maybe an aha moment that said, hey, this is something that we need.
Yeah, I don't know if it's an aha moment or if it was more of a, ah shucks moment. But when Spindle was sold to Twitter, it was 6 or 12 months before Twitter went public. And ultimately, when they were filing to go public, I needed to get a power of attorney so a registered investment advisor could register the shares for me and do that on my behalf. And so that power of attorney needed to be notarized. I went to a UPS store, as people would do, to go see a notary. I sent it off and didn't think about it. And then a couple weeks later, I got a call from the firm that said, "Hey, congratulations, we claimed your stock. We were able to complete this task for you, but we did it illegally." And I said, "What?" And they said, "Yeah, the power of attorney was invalid because the notary had stamped it but forgot to sign it." And so they said, "We can't unwind this, so we need to send this back to you and have you go find that person again." And they weren't there, and there was this whole drama. So that was really the moment where I said, "There's just got to be a better way." And then I had my first kid, and I went skiing in Idaho and broke my leg, and I had a lot of time on my hands. And so I just went deep down the rabbit hole trying to find a better way, and came up with Notarize.
Such an interesting story because, again, for you, that's a huge transaction. There's a lot of money at stake that you have to basically try and rectify in terms of obtaining that signature. In terms of creation of this category, before Notarize, this category really didn't exist, right? What was it like to come onto this space and really create that?
Yeah, so, initially, I was trying to solve my own problem, which was I didn't want to have to go get something notarized again, right? And I really appreciated the problem from the consumer's perspective. And when we launched the product, almost immediately, some very, very large enterprise, companies contacted us, and they said, if you think it's a pain to get something notarized, imagine managing that process, tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of times for your clients. And that's when I realized that this was really your kind of standard digital transformation opportunity, right? These aren't companies looking to get something notarized. They're trying to automate a business process, leasing a car, selling a home, right? That's really what they're focused on. There was just incredible interest, but at the same moment, there was just incredible pushback. So we had a bunch of, regulators and commercial organizations come out against it, either in principle saying, no, this is the devil's work, or simply saying, wait, we have no idea if this is legal, right? So the product launched in February of 2016, and almost immediately in March, the National Association of Secretaries of State launched a task force, and they were going to study the issue, and their policy was against it. So they, we're going to have this big review session, and that's what really kicked it off. So my partner and I went to something like 40 states. Ultimately, I've testified in 30 some states across the country. We did a whole host of legal research, which is not worth getting into here, and ultimately convinced people first that it was legal, then that you could do it across state lines, and then we created model legislation. We got the GSEs, Fannie and Freddie, to accept, and at this point, it's very, very widely accepted. So it's been a long run, but it's been a lot of fun to go to all these places. It's not something that in your normal startup you would get to ever do. So.
Yeah, this is actually a very similar story that we hear, especially from fintech that works within a highly regulated framework. For you guys, in terms of experience, I mean, again, as a technology first mover, it's somewhat kind of given that there's going to be that resistance, but did you feel that that resistance was really justified, or was it kind of behind the scene, there was a lobbying effort to protect certain profit centers and players?
Yeah, I mean, the more that I've come to understand what we do, I think it was justified. And if you think about, why someone gets something notarized, it's ultimately a trust transaction, right? And, there are industries that base their entire risk models based on the fact that this document, is effectively executed and then has legal standing. So, for example, if you get a document notarized and you take it into court, it's considered, prima facie evidence to the validity of the transaction, meaning that the person understood the contents of the document, that they consented to signing them, that they were properly identified, and then there's proof to the transaction. And because of that, you really can't get out of a notarized form in court. Mm-hmm. So think about a mortgage or a will or a transfer of assets or a power of attorney or medical power of attorney. Someone's making decisions on your behalf and going into court. If you're a business that relies upon that, let's say a private wealth firm with a power of attorney, and you trade someone's account and you lose, right? If someone can come back and say, no, that wasn't me, I didn't sign that, think about the risk to your business, right? It's extraordinary. If someone can come and say, hey, I didn't sign that mortgage, or I don't owe you that money, right? It totally changes these markets. And so I can understand, I've come to understand why they needed to be certain that these were legal, that they were valid, that they would be accepted, that they'd be insured. And that's really the work that we've gone through over the number of years. And then there are very specific approvals that you get along the way. So it's not just that the concept has been approved, it's that Notarize as a platform has now been approved by all of these organizations. And so when people use us, they can trust that the mortgage is going to, hold, that the power of attorney will be accepted and whatnot. So, I've come to appreciate it. Long answer, but.
So one of the things I'm thinking about is, some of the challenges of being a first mover and the kind of inherent costs and the burn that you as a small company had to bear. While, let's say, other larger companies that's not exactly in your space, but similar, like say DocuSign, benefited from kind of the ballooning opportunities for some of these transactions to occur online and even go public. Looking back, do you feel like staying with Notary was the right direction for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, so DocuSign doesn't have a directly competitive service, at least not yet. They offer a different solution. One of the things that's been a benefit to us by going out and pushing the regulations is we now have, the relationships. And also, we're seen as the trusted player in the space. So we chair most of the industry committees. We are very engaged in all of the standard setting, processes, and whatnot. And I think something that's really important to keep in mind is at the end of the day, we offer a service, right? And we have humans that have to fulfill these transactions. That's a very different mindset from most software companies that are only focused on selling software that just goes out into the universe and you never have to think about. And so I think the DNA of our company is very different than most of these other companies. And for that reason, we've been signing a lot of, partnerships in the space where, Dropbox, for example, is a company we're integrated with. Like, there's a long list of businesses where, they understand how hard it is to not just provide the software, but provide the service.
Some of the regulations that you're referring to, I believe one is called remote online notarization, or referred to as RON. Can you tell us why is it taking a little bit longer to go from that 23 states to 42 states and then basically have that full coverage?
Yeah, I've actually been told that RON is the fastest adopting technology legislation in the country's history. The problem is I don't know how to verify that. So take it with a grain of salt, but that's what people have told us. It's it went from 1, I think, to 16. This year there'll be more that get passed. So we're actually really pleased with the rate that things have gotten passed. I think initially, it's hard to educate people about, these digital processes. Notarization is something that people just intrinsically understand, right? So you come along with an alternative form. But now we're to the point where there's model legislation. So there's something called RULONA. It's the Revised Uniform Law and Notarial Acts. It came out of the Uniform Law Commission, which wrote the previous notary law, wrote the Universal Commercial Code. There's the Council of State Governments. There's all these associations that write model bills, and they've written ours now. There's a federal bill that's now been introduced. So we're actually pretty pleased with the rate that it's been passed. It's important to note that we don't require legislation to serve a state. So our service is available in all 50 states. The question is whether or not a state wants to authorize their notaries to do this also. And so now, for example, a lot of legislatures are saying, hey, look, our citizens are already doing this. We should be certain that our companies and our notaries can also. So I think we'll close the gap really quick and get at least into the high 40s.
This year has been especially very interesting for you guys, and maybe you could get into some of the circumstance of what's driving some of the business aspects.
Yeah, I mean, we already had plans to have a great year, and we had a great, Q1. For us, really driven by two, core things. One, the regulatory landscape already had made a lot of progress. We had some, very large enterprise financial services companies using us, nationally, even prior to COVID. And then two, really driven by integrations. So we partnered at the end of last year with a company called Ellie Mae. They're the, predominant platform for lenders across the country. We've partnered with the equivalent for title agents. And so really seeing a lot of amazing adoption earlier this year, just because we're making it easier, right? So we're integrating into the tools that people already use. You can use it nationally, so you don't have to really think about, hey, where can I or can't I do this? And then COVID hit. So in the last week of March, we had more than 3,000 companies contact us and come inbound. Since then, as a business, we're up somewhere between 400% and 500% in about 90 days. We've signed several of the Fortune 100. And so it's in our business, there's going to be a pre-COVID and there's going to be a post-COVID. It's just a fundamental change in customers' appetite and behavior.
Yeah, interesting. Anecdotally, I've had to have a notary in my house literally this week for some purpose. And I was very surprised to actually even have that person in the house. I didn't actually want that person. And he was saying that there are many notaries that have chosen to opt out of going into people's homes and doing their work. So I would have loved to have had this type as an option. What is the adoption curve that you see in terms of, because of the integration work, the partnerships that you have? What can we see in the next several years in terms of how likely is this going to be the new norm?
Yeah, I mean, I can give you 2 data points. So I think just focusing on real estate in particular, because there's the best data in real estate, something like 91% of consumers now search for their home online. It's 97% of millennials, right? So you go to Redfin, you go to Zillow, right? You're looking for your home. Now it's in the high 70s of people that are applying for a mortgage online. And that wasn't true just 3 years ago. So the adoption curve of online mortgage application went from 10 or 15% to basically 70 in 3 years. And online notarization is really the continuation of that process. So people are going to search for their home online, they're going to apply for their mortgage online, and then they're going to close online. And the reason is because we're building integrated systems, right? So that's going to be the default journey for people. When you go get your mortgages, it will take you through that digital experience. So, we think that it's going to follow suit, and that it'll be, the majority of transactions within 2 or 3 years. And I especially think that's true now, given COVID and given, the people that are signing up, frankly, the businesses that are signing up. Outside of, real estate, I think it follows the similar curve to e-signature, which is if you're, interacting with a law firm or a bank or whatnot, the numbers that we hear, it's, between 60 and 70%, depending on the use case. We expect it to be the exact same. We're seeing a lot of customers, that as well. About 1.25 billion notarized documents in the US every year. And so we're talking, hundreds and hundreds of millions of transactions, sort of, no matter how you kind of slice those numbers yourself.
So I think as you kind of look back historically at your business in terms of the hard work that you guys had to put in terms of lobbying and regulatory work, now you're starting to see kind of the upside potential where this is going from a market share opportunity. Going back to this notion of trust, because I think that's a very valuable notion, right? So in cybersecurity, there's things around authentication as an example. Here we're talking about trust as it really pertains to legal aspects. How do you foresee that from a product portfolio that can expand to other things where trust is quintessential to that transaction?
Yeah, so we already do non-notarizations. We have, many clients in healthcare, small business lending, you name it, that choose to put people through our process, even if the form doesn't need to be notarized. And we do what are called identity proofings. And someone will go through the process of confirming their identity, connecting with the human who performs a final, check, and then they will, certify the documents. And so we've had clients that have actually that previously got a medallion signature, if you're familiar with that. And so that's basically a fancy notarization where a bank gives a guarantee, and they're choosing to use our process instead. I think, when I think about sort of what's happening on the internet, you have all these companies that are digitizing, right? And as a result of that, they're trying to have national or international reach, but they're tending to do it from centralized operations, right? So if you think about a mortgage lender now, like Quicken Loans, they're in Detroit, but they're serving people nationally. If you think about State Farm, they're in Iowa, right? But they're serving people nationally. So they have the efficiencies and the digital customer experience, but then they have anonymity, right? They don't know or have a face-to-face relationship with the people that they're interacting with. And what we allow folks to do is to connect with those clients, to have the rich identity verification, the human validation. And so we see a lot of, expansion of use cases as a result of that.
Yeah, I think that's a really valid point that you make, is that as we go digital, I think there is a false assumption that everything can be done purely digitally, but having the human interaction with the automation provides a very unique opportunity. Mm-hmm. In closing, let's talk a little bit about, again, in the context of lessons learned as well as advice for startups, because your experience was very unique around that. It was a lot of your success really hinged very heavily on regulatory changes and influencing legislators and policymakers. What kinds of insights and advice can you give?
Yeah, I'll give you two. One's just sort of generic startup advice. Everyone talks about product market fit. I think as a company, we had product market fit almost immediately. I think a thing we've struggled with and we finally, have figured out is almost a concept of like product delivery fit, which is that if you can't take the solution that people want and figure out how to integrate it into their business process or their systems, it doesn't matter. And that's where we've spent the most of our calories over the past couple of years, is really trying to understand these industries. How do people rely upon notarized services? What systems do they use? I think that's an under, discussed or researched sort of topic within startup land. In terms of the regulatory stuff, honestly, do not undercount the value of showing up. If you want to change policy or change regulation, you have to show up and you have to know what you're talking about. And you'd be surprised, how few people ever do come. You'd be surprised how people try to run out the clock on you or schedule a meeting in a different state on Tuesday, and then you show up and, it got moved to Thursday. And do you have the staying power? Are you willing to, to keep showing up and to represent your cause? And then separately, you have to have just a sufficiently large market opportunity. As some people say, the juice better be worth the squeeze. We were years into it and tens of millions of dollars, not knowing if this was going to tip in our favor in terms of the legal acceptance. And that was only because it was such a big opportunity and we had so much interest from commercial clients and then ultimately support to go change these policies and get acceptance. So you just have to have the guts. Like you can't push all these people to change policy and then not actually have the product, right? You have to have the guts to go build the product at the same time so that when you win, then it exists, right? And I think we've won because we've just done that, right? So people say something can't work and it's like, here it is, right? It works. And so kind of simple advice, but you'd be surprised how far it'll get you.
Well, thank you so much for that sagacious advice. And I really liked your point about market delivery fit. I think sometimes execution is somewhat of a broad umbrella, but it doesn't get into the kind of granularity around how do you actually make it work and be adopted and embraced and integrated into the business processes and industry practices. So with that, I've been joined by Pat Kinsale, who is the CEO of Notarize. Thanks for joining today.
Thank you so much.
If you've enjoyed this episode, take a moment to rate our show on any podcast platform that you listen to. Scroll down to the bottom and push 5 stars. It's that easy. And as always, thanks for listening.